Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Sports 2.0 show. My name is Ryan Goetze, and I'm here with Amber Williams and Aaron Yadigroff. How are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
We're pretty good, pretty good. You guys got any plans for the 4th of July weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to be going with some of my friends to the beach and watching some fireworks. So I'm pretty excited.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm going all the way to Las Vegas, so it's gonna be a lot of fun with some of my friends from home. It's got for a nice 5 day, somewhere around that vacation. So we're all over 21. It's gonna be a lot of fun, a lot of gambling, a lot of drinking. Should be fun stuff.
Vegas beach fireworks sounds like a great time.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about about our topic today. It's the best defenses in the NFL. And I think this is a great topic to talk about because usually the NFL is an offensive driven league, and it's all about the quarterbacks. But what kind of gets lost nowadays are defenses. And if you saw last year, the Bucs had one of the best defenses in the NFL. And I'm sure Amber is going to talk about that coming up soon. But it definitely does matter and is often overlooked. I think, in my opinion, the best defense in the NFL are the San Francisco 49ers. 2 years ago, they had the best defense in the NFL. They had the rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year, Nick Bosa, who had a great rookie season. Last year, unfortunately, he got injured in the beginning of the season, and the Niners were hit by the injury bug. They got a lot of injuries, not only on the offense side of the ball, but also the defense, which I think definitely compromised their effectiveness. One thing to mention, though, about the Niners defense is that they lost their former defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh, who was a great coordinator. He's now the coach for the New York Jets. But DeMeco Ryans is the new defensive coordinator now, and he's a great experienced defender in the NFL with the Patriots. I think he's going to do a great job. I think he's going to surprise some people. I wouldn't even be shocked if in 3-4 years down the line he gets considered for a head coaching job. That's how much I believe in him. The reason I think the Niners are going to do great again this year is because all the players they lost last year due to injuries, such as Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in the NFL. You talk about Drake Greenlaw, his counterpart. Even in the secondary, they had a lot of injuries. I think it's just going to, once everyone they had a lot of time to recover. Once everyone comes back, I think it's going to pay huge dividends. Obviously, the Niners have focused on their defensive line. They spent multiple first-round picks in the past few years on the defensive line, and you saw a few years ago how in the Super Bowl it definitely paid off. Obviously, they didn't win it all, but they made it that far. So you got to give credit where credit is due. I see them having a big bounce back year with all those defenders coming back. What do you think, Amber, about the Bucs?
Yeah, so I do think the 49ers are going to be good, but I think the best defense in the NFL is going to be Tampa Bay. So they're reigning Super Bowl champions, right? And they returned all 22 of their starters from last season's defense. And this is a team that now they're going to be seasoned. They know how to work together. They have the chemistry. They don't have to relearn it with a bunch of new guys. And that same cohort was ranked 6th in yards and 8th in points. So they've already proven that they know what to do, and it's only going to get better. Now, they also added new players. So they added Joe Tryon, I hope I'm saying that right, in the 2021 draft as an outside linebacker. And they also added KJ Britt. He is from Auburn, 6'0", 239 pounds, and he's an inside linebacker. That was kind of a need for the Bucs, in my opinion. They needed something on the inside, so I think that's just going to make them be even better. And as far as their current players, they have Jason Pierre-Paul. He's the outside linebacker. He was a NFL Pro Bowl, and he's an amazing player. And then we have Shaquille Barrett, linebacker, 2 Super Bowl rings. In 2019, he led the NFL in sacks, so he knows what he's doing as well. Then there's Levante David. He is the team captain for defense in 2020 with Devin White. And Devin White, another linebacker, he was number 3 in the league for solo tackles in 2020 with 97. So I know that this team, they're veterans. They know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to get out there, and they already won the Super Bowl. They know how to play this. And they also, let's not forget their defensive tackles. We have Vita Vea, and he's an amazing player. I don't even feel like I need to say anything about him. He's just that good. Then we have Ndamukong Suh. So he's an absolute boss. He is a 5-time Pro Bowl and a 3-time All-Pro. We've seen him play. We know exactly what he's got up his sleeve, and he's just going to bring it more for Tampa Bay. And then as far as leadership, they are still led by Todd Bowles, and he may be even becoming a head coach himself, as you were mentioning there as one of the other guys. I can totally see him becoming a coach himself. So we know, I mean, he led them to a Super Bowl championship. So this defense is already amazing with what they had last year, and they're returning all of that amazing talent with just new people that are going to come. And I think they're going to absolutely explode on the defense to make Tampa Bay the number one.
Yeah, I totally agree with both you're saying. It's funny, I'm a Jets fan, and you guys mentioned the current Jets coach, who was Rob Saleh, who was the 49ers defensive coordinator, and Todd Bowles, who was the ex-Jets coach before Adam Gase was there. So, hey, we'll see if by these two amazing defensive minds, if the Jets can do well. But I won't be talking about the Jets currently. Maybe we'll bring that up later. I'm going to be talking about the Washington football team, who's probably led by the best defensive coach in the NFL, and Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera has made his defense his own now, arguably the best defense in football last year, at least top 3. I think it'll be the best this year. They have one of the best young defensive ends. I won't say the best because Ryan's a Niners fan. We got Gosio over there. But one of the best defensive ends in football in Chase Young, who had 32 tackles, 12 assists, 7.5 sacks, 4 passes defended, 12 quarterback hits, 10 tackles for loss, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries, including one of them being a touchdown. And he was named AP Defensive Rookie of the Year, just like Gosio was for the 49ers the previous season. So just having Chase Young on your team, who should arguably was the best player in the draft when he was drafted, but obviously quarterbacks had taken one, so he didn't get taken to one, but he is incredible. There's also, on the other side of the defensive line, we got a player named Montez Sweat, who was a first-round pick a few years before that, and he is a very, very good. He lists number 17 on the edge rusher list by PFF, which is incredible for having Chase Young at 8 and him at 17. Both of them very young players. You've seen Montez Sweat in some commercials also for Old Spice because of the last name Sweat. He's a funny guy and stuff like that also, if you haven't seen. And yeah, Montez Sweat and Chase Young, but it's not only about them two. Their full defensive line is really very good. They have Jonathan Allen and Darren Payne, who were first-round picks the 2 years before these also. So the last 4 years they've been, excluding 2021, they've been drafting defensive line talent. So they've been working on this defensive line incredibly well, and it's been doing well. Obviously, in the past, they were working more in their secondary with Josh Norman and stuff like that. He's not on the team anymore. But, yeah, and they also have made some good signings. And William Jackson III, who is very, very good. Ronald Darby was on the team last year. He's a very good cornerback, but he was definitely not as good as Jackson. Jackson is definitely seen as an upgrade. He ranks 9th on the PFF top cornerback list. And Kendall Fuller also returning back to Washington, who's been a great player for the Washington for the last few years. I think it's his 4th year back. And, yeah. But
one common trend I see the Niners, the Bucks, and the Washington football team all have is it all starts on the defensive line. And I think you saw that in the Super Bowl. The Bucks defensive line definitely rattled Patrick Mahomes. And I don't care what kind of quarterback you are. If you got pressure coming, especially in your face, there's not much you're going to be able to do. So I think I'm glad you guys mentioned those points. I think they're the 3 best, not only the defensive lines in football, which in turn helps their secondary much more and makes them look better. Obviously, there's a lot of talent in the secondary as well, but I think it all starts on the defensive line.
Yeah, going off that, I mentioned the Jets earlier. I'll mention them now for a bit. They're obviously not going to be one of the best defenses in the NFL, but they could be a shock with Rob Saleh as their head coach. He's building the defense by the defensive line, getting Carl Lawson, who had incredible numbers in the Bengals, ex-Auburn guy, and Sheldon Rankins from the Saints, great defensive tackle. Quinton Williams is already there, who's arguably the best young defensive tackle in the league. Not the best defensive tackle in the league, because we'll bring up the best defensive tackle in the league later in Aaron Donald. And then they got Vinny Curry also, who's Super Bowl winner with the Eagles, played for the Buccaneers also for a year. He's a very talented guy. So a lot of good young good coaches in general are building their defense through their defensive line, and that's very important. So, well, is there another team you guys want to talk about, Ryan or Amber, right now?
Go ahead, Amber.
I was just going to say, I do definitely agree that all of the teams that we have mentioned have every weapon in their arsenal to be the best defensive NFL team in this coming season. I think it's all up to, I think, the rookies, the ones who are new, because a lot of the returning ones, we already know what they have. We know what they're going to do. It's up to these new people to bring and elevate that team into the best defense.
I agree. I think also another point to mention is that not only is it talent, but I think it's definitely the scheme also has a lot to do with it. Like Aaron mentioned, Robert Saleh was a great defensive coordinator, and a lot of credit should be given to him for putting his guys in the right position to create havoc for the Niners. You look at a team like the Cowboys, and yes, the Cowboys definitely don't pop off on paper. They don't have much talent on the defensive side of the ball, but you look at their scheme, and it's no wonder that they were the worst defense in NFL history last year. They gave up the most yards in NFL history. And you look at Rob Marinelli. Yes, he was a good defensive coordinator back in maybe the 90s, but I mean the NFL has changed since then. The guys look lost out there. And they didn't seem like they knew what they were doing. And also another thing to mention is that especially guys in the NFL, especially guys on defense, they love playing for their guy and their coach. You saw all the Niners galvanize around Robert Saleh. They love the guy. He loved them. Motivation is something that I think doesn't get talked about enough. It sounds pretty cliche, but if you're gonna go all out for a guy that you believe in and that you like, not someone that just kind of is an old guy who's known a few things in the NFL like Rob Marinelli. No disrespect to him, he was a great coach back in his day, but I think his time has definitely passed by. So I think the same goes with Todd Bowles. I think that the Bucs definitely galvanized around his scheme. They bought in, and they played hard for him. So I mean, we'll see. I hopefully for DeMeco Ryans will galvanize the troops as well, and I think he will because he's a player's kind of coach and he has a lot of cachet in the league. So we'll see how the Niners respond to him, but I think motivation is something that doesn't get talked about enough, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
Totally agree with that. We were talking about the draft earlier and all these rookies that need to play a big part of the teams that are these big teams. But one of the crazy things that happened during the 2021 NFL draft was the first 7 picks in the draft for all offensive players, which we never really see. We always see that 1 or 2 very great defensive players always up there. We had Bosa, we had Chase Young, we had Jadeveon Clowney. There's all these great young players, usually defensive ends, because that's what people love to draft, or what teams usually love to draft are there. So it's crazy that we didn't have any of those huge names until the 8th pick, which was J.C. Horn from South Carolina, who was originally going to be in the 20s, but his pro day and stuff went really well, and he got up to 8. So it's crazy that there was nobody from defensive line or even linebackers. Usually it's one of those positions that are picked that early into the thing. But let's talk about another team. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams. We mentioned earlier about the best defensive tackle in the league, or I did, and that's Aaron Donald. I think Aaron Donald's the best player in the NFL, not just the best defensive tackle, not the best defensive player. I think he's the best player in the NFL. He literally gets triple teamed and still gets a hit on the quarterback, gets a sack. He's literally incredible what he does. He's still not that old, Aaron Donald. He's only 30 years old, and he still looks like he's in his prime. He's won Defensive Player of the Year multiple times. He's been on the Rams his whole career. Incredible player. Sadly, they lost their defensive coordinator, Brandon Staley, who I think will be helping the Chargers a lot. The Rams had one of the best defenses by statistics last year in NFL. So they were first in yards against, first in points, and 4th in DVOA. So that's really, really good by the Rams. They did lose their defensive coordinator, as I mentioned. They also lost a few players on their side of the ball, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Amber.
You're good. I was just saying, you said they lost their defensive coordinator, right? So like we were talking about, leadership is so important and being able to motivate that team. So if they can get one that is able to rally them up and give that camaraderie and earn that trust with them, I think that'll definitely be very important. But then it could also go the other way, and having somebody new that the team doesn't know, that might be a little bit of an issue for them.
I think another player you forgot to mention, Aaron, is Jalen Ramsey in the secondary. He's
For sure.
all-pro cornerback. He's a great cornerback. I also think something that doesn't get talked about enough. Well, it does get talked about with him, but the mental aspect of the game. He really gets under opposing wide receivers in their heads. Quarterbacks are afraid to throw the ball towards his direction. It kind of reminds me of Darrell Revis with the Jets back in the day. Also a former Buccaneers cornerback. Not only was he a great quarterback, had great ball skills, but he also really got into the players' heads that he was playing against. You look at Aqib Talib, another guy. Just the list goes on and on. There's certain players in the NFL that guys fear and don't want to go up against, and they also bring a physicality to the game that other defenders, especially in the secondary, don't really bring. In a day and age where the NFL is a lot more sensitive on head-to-head hits, guys like Jalen Ramsey, for example, are kind of finding another way to be physical without breaking the rules. I mean, you see a lot of hand grabbing, you see a lot of chirping, obviously, wrapping their arms around the waist. I mean, yeah, he might get called every now and then, but if you're constantly being rattled, not only in your ear, but physically, you're going to get frustrated. I don't care how many penalties they have against him, but you're going to get under people's skins, and quarterbacks will definitely be afraid to throw the ball in their direction, which has been the case in Jalen Ramsey's career with the Rams and the Jaguars.
Totally agree. Not the biggest fan of him because he went to Florida State as a Miami guy, but he's a very talented player. And then let's go over to the safety position. I think a team that everyone's forgot about is the Arizona Cardinals. They signed J.J. Watt, and the safety I want to mention, who I think is the best safety in the NFL last season, was Budda Baker. He got a bag last offseason and has been playing out of his skin. So the Arizona Cardinals defense is definitely much better than people think. Getting J.J. Watt, the former defensive player of the year a few years ago. He's been a little injury prone recently, but Budda Baker was incredible. Had 2 sacks and 1 forced fumble. He played 15 out of 16 games, 90 solo tackles last season. So you could see how hard hitting also Budda Baker is in the league. I think it was between him and Jamal Adams for best safety in the NFL, and Jamal Adams just didn't play at all last year. He was injured most of the year, and when he did, he just didn't look like he was himself when he was back on the Jets or in LSU. Any thoughts on this? If not, let's go to that team that we think is probably going to improve a lot. I know Ryan wanted to talk about this team a little bit, the New England Patriots. What are your thoughts on this one, Ryan?
So I think the Patriots are a team that have been known for their defense for a long time. And last year, with all the turnover, all the opt-outs due to COVID, the team really struggled. And I think with all their guys coming back from the COVID list, not the COVID list, from opting out last year to coming back into this season, I think they pay huge dividends. I think Bill Belichick will really get back to his roots in terms of pressuring the quarterback and stopping the run. So I see them improving a lot. They also made a bunch of free agent signings, which Amber can talk about. But I see them being much improved.
Yeah, I definitely see that they're going to do better this year. I know, like you said, they did make a bunch of signings during the free agency that I think is going to bring their defense elevated instead of what it, of course, was. I could see them maybe not this year being the best defense. I mean, as a Patriots fan, I would definitely like that to happen. But I see that they have more development going ahead for the future years. I could see it in the upcoming years. They're going to be really good on defense for sure.
Yeah, the Patriots have a lot of players coming back that opted out last year. They also signed some good players like Jalen Mills in the offseason, Henry Anderson. So they've definitely improved their defense a tiny bit, and bringing back players who've been there for a while, like Chung and the linebacker, which I'm blanking on his name. It'll come to me. Dante Hightower, who are coming back from not playing with COVID, is incredible. So we'll see how they do. They're obviously in a very tough division, probably the second toughest division in NFL in the AFC East, with the Bills and the Dolphins, with young teams around them. Jets up and coming, team 2, probably the worst team in the division, most people would say, but you can obviously argue against that. But yeah, another team that we'll talk about is who we mentioned earlier, is the Chargers. They just got Brandon Staley, one of the best young defensive coordinators in the NFL, to become their head coach from the LA Rams. So not far removed for him. And they have some good young players. Derwin James looked like he was going to be one of the best safeties in the NFL, but he's been very injury prone. We've got Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa's brother, who we mentioned earlier, is I think the highest paid defensive end in the league, I think, right now, who's been incredible. So obviously they lost Melvin Ingram. They have Denzel Perryman, who's still playing great. I think they have Denzel Perryman still, but I don't want to confirm that. But they are very good. They have very great positional players, and getting Brandon Staley, who we mentioned the Rams stats and defense last year, will definitely help improve this team a lot.
I'm glad you brought up Brandon Staley. There's a lot of former defensive coordinators that are now getting the job to become head coaches, which is a big shock, considering how much the NFL has really shifted to an offensive-oriented league. You look at Brandon Staley, you look at Rob Saleh, you look at Vic Fangio for the Broncos, all former defensive guys that are getting the nod to be the head coach. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. You look at Dan Quinn, for example, who had brief success with the Falcons and getting them to the Super Bowl, but he also did mightily struggle right after the collapse. But I mean, in my opinion, it's a very risky move to make your defensive coordinator your head coach. Yes, obviously, they could definitely pay dividends on the defensive side of the ball, but you also got to get a guy to be your offensive coordinator that definitely knows the ins and outs. Because as everyone knows, especially in the NFL, you get hired for one reason. What do you do best? And that's why you get hired. If Brandon Staley, for example, isn't at least top 10 defense for the Chargers this year, I see his seat getting hot right away. And I know that's kind of too soon to say, but he's probably not going to get another opportunity, especially if the Chargers don't step it up on defense. They have a lot of talent. So, I mean, obviously, it depends on the opposite side of the ball, too, how many wins you're going to get. But like I said, if the Chargers aren't one of the best ranked defensive teams in the NFL last year, I see that this seat getting pretty hot for him right away.
Yeah, as you mentioned, there's not many defensive coordinators that are becoming coaches anymore, becoming such an offensive league. I'll talk about the Rams again, and their coach, Sean McVay. He was the guy that was like, he was the guy that made teams think we need a young offensive coach now. There were so many teams that did that. Adam Gase, Cliff Kingsbury. There's the Bengals coach. I'm blanking on his name right now. But there's so many. What? Say it.
Zach Taylor.
Zach Taylor. There's so many young offensive coordinators that are becoming head coaches. So that was the thing. But Brandon Staley is still a young defensive coordinator. Same with Rob Saleh. There's a lot of those. Mike LaFleur also with or Matt LaFleur. One of them. One of them's offense coordinator for the Jets. One's the coach of the Packers. They're both very young, very smart guys. But yeah. But the person who we are all forgetting about is Bill Belichick. He was a defensive guy his whole career, and look how he's done. So maybe getting a coach when they're somewhat still young. Belichick became the Patriots coach in 2000, so he was 48 then. So, which is somewhat pretty young for a head coach, you could say. So maybe Staley will be this guy for the Rams, and with this already incredible defense around them, we'll see. But I think that's all we got for today. Thank you everyone for watching the show. If you guys do not follow us or subscribe to us on YouTube, we just hit 400 subs. Let's try to get that to 500 as soon as possible. Drop us a follow on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. It's a Noob Sports 2.0 network on most of those. So yeah, drop us those follows, likes, subscriptions, and we'll see you guys later.